Hello everybody. If you want to read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. Short story 426, The Case of the Missing Heiress. Intermediate. It was a cool, misty evening in London when Detective Inspector Anderson received the call that would change the course of his week. A young woman, heiress to a vast fortune, had gone missing from her luxurious apartment in the heart of the city. Detective Inspector Anderson, or D.I. Anderson as he was commonly known, was no stranger to high-profile cases. With a career spanning over 2 decades, he had seen it all. But there was something about this case that intrigued him. Perhaps it was the mystery surrounding the heiress, or the fact that no ransom demand had been made. Whatever it was, D.I. Anderson knew he had to solve this case. The heiress in question was Isabella Thompson, a 25-year-old woman who had inherited her family's vast business empire. She was known for her independent spirit and her love of adventure. She had travelled the world, experiencing different cultures and making a name for herself as a philanthropist. D.I. Anderson arrived at Isabella's apartment early the next morning. The place was swarming with police officers, forensics experts, and curious onlookers. The apartment was a mess, with clothes strewn all over the floor and makeup scattered across the vanity table. But there was no sign of a struggle or forced entry. D.I. Anderson began his investigation by interviewing the building's staff. The doorman had seen Isabella leave the building the previous evening, around 7 p.m. She had been alone and had not mentioned where she was going. The last person to see her had been her maid, who had left the apartment around 9 p.m. after helping Isabella get ready for bed. D.I. Anderson then turned his attention to Isabella's phone records. There were several calls made to a number that was not saved in her contacts. The number belonged to a man named Daniel O'Connell, a private investigator who had been hired by Isabella's family to keep an eye on her. D.I. Anderson arranged to meet with Daniel O'Connell at his office. Daniel was a tall, muscular man with a no-nonsense attitude. He told D.I. Anderson that he had been hired by Isabella's family to follow her and report back on her activities. They were concerned about her safety, given her penchant for taking risks. Daniel had been following Isabella for the past 6 months. He had seen her meet with various business associates, attend charity events, and even go on a few dates. But there was nothing in her behaviour that suggested she was in any danger. D.I. Anderson thanked Daniel for his cooperation and asked him to keep him informed of any developments. He then returned to the police station to go over the evidence they had gathered so far. It was then that he received a call from the Missing Persons Unit. They had received a tip-off that Isabella had been spotted in a cafe in Camden Town, a trendy area of London known for its vibrant music scene. D.I. Anderson and his team rushed to the cafe, but there was no sign of Isabella. However, they did find a waitress who remembered serving a woman who matched Isabella's description. She had been alone and had seemed distracted. D.I. Anderson decided to stake out the area, hoping that Isabella would return. After several hours of waiting, they finally spotted her. She was walking down the street, looking over her shoulder as if she was being followed. D.I. Anderson approached her cautiously, not wanting to spook her. He identified himself as a police officer and asked if she was Isabella Thompson. She nodded, looking relieved. Isabella explained that she had been kidnapped by a group of men who had threatened to harm her family if she didn't cooperate. They had kept her in a safe house on the outskirts of London, only allowing her to leave under the supervision of one of the henchmen. D.I. Anderson listened in shock as Isabella recounted her ordeal. He assured her that they would do everything in their power to bring her kidnappers to justice. In the end, D.I. Anderson and his team were able to track down and arrest the kidnappers. Isabella was reunited with her family, and she expressed her gratitude to D.I. Anderson for his help. The case of the missing heiress was closed, but D.I. Anderson knew that there would always be more cases to solve. He loved the thrill of the chase, the satisfaction of piecing together the puzzle, and the joy of bringing justice to those who needed it most. Vocabulary notes. Heiress, noun, a woman who inherits a large amount of money or property. Similar words, beneficiary, inheritor, successor. Example, a young woman, heiress to a vast fortune, had gone missing from her luxurious apartment in the heart of the city. High profile, adjective, attracting a lot of attention from the public or the media. Similar words, notorious, celebrated, conspicuous. Example, Detective Inspector Anderson was no stranger to high-profile cases. Independent spirit, noun phrase, a strong desire to be independent and self-reliant. Similar words, self-sufficiency, autonomy, individualism. Example, Isabella Thompson, a 25-year-old woman who had inherited her family's vast business empire, was known for her independent spirit. Swarming, verb, to move around in large numbers, often in a disorganized or chaotic way. Similar words, thronging, teeming, mobbing. Example, the place was swarming with police officers, forensic experts, and curious onlookers. Forced entry, noun phrase, entry that is gained by using force, often by breaking down a door or window. Similar words, break-in, burglary, home invasion. Example, there was no sign of a struggle or forced entry. No nonsense, adjective, straightforward and practical, with little time for foolishness or nonsense. Similar words, businesslike, matter-of-fact, pragmatic. Example, Daniel was a tall, muscular man with a no-nonsense attitude. Henchman, noun, a person who works for and obeys the orders of a criminal boss or leader. Similar words, accomplice, associate, crony. Example, they had kept her in a safe house on the outskirts of London, only allowing her to leave under the supervision of one of their henchmen. Story written by Mistral Large 2, Mistral AI. Image created by Flux, Schnell, Black Forest Labs AI. To read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you.